What I want to do is share with you over the next maybe 10 minutes what I had to put up with, in quotes, for 10 years of dealing with very, very gifted people that saw an idea that they thought was good and how they made it better. And that was in a classroom. So what do you think happened? 10 years later, this is 10, maybe 12 years later, and I'll show you what happened. Sure, there's going to be a lot more people, but I'm not against a lot of people. I'm against people not being treated equal. So if everyone could be treated equal, it doesn't matter how many of us there is, we all get the same amount of water, we all get the same amount of food, we get the same kind of shelter, we get the same kind of clothing. The rest is up to you. But I think those are the essentials that everybody deserves because you were born. We know that nature is the economy that allows our lives to exist, nature. And we've been taking nature away and making room for us ever since we discovered how to do that. So here's our challenges, and we've heard a lot about this already, right? How do we do all of this? And this last one is the most important one. How do we bring back nature so that it can be our best friend again? So right now we're at odds with nature because we're continuing to grow in terms of population. We're making more farmland to feed more people. It looks like a vicious cycle. Eventually we're going to run out of farmland, and then we're going to run out of people if that happens. So it's about food and water, basically. And look what happens when we use too much water. Farming uses 70% of the liquid fresh water on Earth. And occasionally we use it all up. And this is what the Colorado River looks like sometimes. The other thing that happens, and we heard this brilliantly described this morning with runoff. Agricultural runoff, it shows you all those places on Earth where that's occurring, and that's mostly due to farming. And look what happens. I was born in New Orleans. I can show you right where that is. It's right over here. It's right next to the worst dead zone on the planet. And that's killing all those life forms that we depend on for our food and for cleaning the environment. So greenhouse gases cause climate to accelerate in terms of warming, which results in more severe floods, droughts, hurricanes, fires, and of course we have to worry about the rising sea level too. You want proof, just go to visit a glacier and take a picture 20 years ago. Of course you couldn't do that because you're too young, but someone else did. And now compare that to the picture that you can take. And you can see immediately what's happening. How come people don't agree with this? Why don't they visualize the evidence for themselves? Why don't they come on board, so to speak? Because there are a lot of people out there that don't believe it. So what's happening is that sea level is rising, and some nations, particularly in the Pacific, if 2 more feet of water raise up, they will disappear. They will have to move in order to survive. Their whole country will disappear. We can't allow that to happen. We know what's going on because we can look. Remember, believe your eyes. Don't necessarily believe what you hear. Believe your eyes. The eyes that saw this is called Landsat 8. It's a satellite that circles the Earth every 4 hours, and it takes pictures the whole time. So we can take those pictures and colorize the places on Earth that correspond to certain plants, including crop plants. And then we can add all the crop plants together to find out how much land 7.3 billion people actually need. So it's the number is bigger, by the way, now. When I made the slide, it was 7.0. It's now 7.3, and that was only 5 years ago. Frightening, yes? Look at how big our agricultural footprint's as big as the entire continent of South America. This can't go on this way. So we have this population, and it's still growing because we haven't run out of food. So how are we going to handle this? Another 3 billion people are coming. So if 7.0 needs that much, another 3 billion needs the size of Brazil, more land in order to accommodate their needs as well. And that's just not going to happen because there isn't that much land available. So what are we going to do? In addition to the fact that, of course, farming isn't exactly a perfect technology to begin with. This is the biggest problem in the world, agricultural runoff. So how do we solve it? Well, we do it by reinventing the way cities live. And right now, cities are totally unsustainable. So we have to make a new kind of city. And the way to do this is to realize what the problems are first. And so we have to do this, but we also have to do this. Because if we can't do both together, we have written our own extinction program. And I know nobody wants to go away. They want to live, and they want to see what the future is going to be like. It's a bright future, believe me, because you're going to create it. So we have to do this. So how do we do it? Well, we've just heard a whole bunch of ways of saving land outside by farming another way. We can farm inside instead. And there are lots of technologies available for that. For instance, if we go to the country of Japan, in a building that actually has nothing to do with indoor farming. These people work in this building and develop retirement benefit plans and handle your stock portfolios. They're interested in human resources. But inside their building is a vertical farm that goes from the first floor all the way up to the 9th floor of this building. And I'll show you what happens as a result. It's kind of cool. So these are other versions. This is one of our world's greatest educators as to how to do all of this indoor farming. It's called Control Environment Agriculture. So the biggest reward of farming indoors is that you don't need the outdoors anymore as much. So you can restore some damaged ecosystem and make our natural capital come back. So now you do that by making a brand new city. And you start by looking to nature, because that's where all the answers are. A very famous ecologist by the name of Howard Odum once said, nature has all the answers. What's your question? What's your question? What's your question? Because if you have a question, there's an answer out there in nature. All you have to do is look hard for it. We'll be inspired to make a new city by looking at how an ecosystem works. And here's the way an ecosystem compares to the city. We've got all of the trophic levels that we need to make an ecosystem except one. We don't grow our food. So instead of being friendly to the planet, we're parasitic on the planet. So let's change that. Let's take urban agriculture, and of course vertical farming is the densest form of urban agriculture, so I think it has a big role to play, and put that at the center point to our new eco-city. And we can recycle all of this, and you've all been talking about that. They're easy to do. So if they're so easy to do, how come we're not doing it? Well, they are doing this in some places. So let's see where this is happening. Here's some outdoor vegetable gardens. What happens in the wintertime? So rooftop gardens, the same deal. We've got lots of examples, and some are in New York. That's Brooklyn Grange right over here. What do you think happened to this during Hurricane Sandy? Same deal. But here's the other vertical farm. Actually, it's just a greenhouse. It's a high-tech greenhouse that uses hydroponics near Brooklyn Grange, and they continued to work through Sandy. Everybody went to work that day. And here they are on the top of Whole Foods. This is Gotham Greens, now 20,000 square feet, and they're expanding because there's a demand. Here's a guy up in Canada. Take a look at the rooftops here. Flat as a board, right? Look at the snow on the ground. And here are his greenhouses, fully operational, right in the middle of them. They have some fierce winters up there. And now here are where you can find vertical farms throughout the world. 10 years ago, there was a single dot on this map. A single dot. And now look what's happened. Taiwan, which is here, has about 50. I can revise the number for Japan because they now have a real number. It's 215. And it's growing now. It's expanding. So now we're seeing examples. You can go to Chicago and find this guy. He's fantastic to talk with, shares all of his technologies. He wants everybody to learn how to do this. There's a place in Bedford Park, just north of Chicago. They've now got 3 different plants. They only had 1 to start with, of course. Here's another group. This is called Green Spirit Farms. They're now opening franchises in Ohio and Michigan and West Virginia. So you can see that people hear about these things and they want one for themselves. Here's the one I had the pleasure of visiting in Korea. It's an experimental vertical farm to teach the people of Korea how to do this. Here's one in Japan that's as big as a 747 hangar, and they raise food inside. Here's the grocery stores of Japan. Look, you can go to a grocery store and slide this cabinet open and take scissors and a little bag and put it over the plant you want, cut it, bring it to the counter, they'll weigh it, and you can take it home and eat it within minutes of its harvest. And here's this building I told you about. It's called Persona O2. It's got green walls on the outside for great reasons, as you just described. And the people working in this building, when they want to go to lunch, all they have to do is start at the first floor, pick some rice, go to the second floor, pick some tomatoes, go to the third floor, pick some green beans, some squash, some zucchini, take it up to the chef, wait 20 minutes, and out comes a hot meal. Isn't that cool? This has only been in existence since 2010. So now everybody wants one. Here's one that's open in Singapore. This guy is now up to 40,000 square feet. You get the idea that this is happening. Here's one really close to where you live. It's in Newark, New Jersey. They grow food differently than hydroponics. This is aeroponics. It's even more plant density in a smaller area. It's going to be great, and they're going to open in another couple of weeks. Here's one out on the West Coast. They're now expanding as well. Here's a brand new one that opens in Jackson, Wyoming. A couple more in Indiana. Here's another one in Nashville. You can make plants do things for you too by genetically modifying them. Here's a plant that makes rubber. Here's another plant that makes insulin. Here's another plant that makes clotting factors. If you have hemophilia, they will make the protein that you're missing so that you don't have that problem. This is very clever use of technology. This is your school. I was there when that opened. Well, not on the day it opened, but I was there pretty close to it. I'm a graduate of this school. That's the way I like to think of it. It's a fantastic start. Every school needs one of these. You agree? Come on, let's build them all on the rooftops of the schools. Then everybody can learn. Okay. So I'm about to finish here. This is your choice. What would you like your city to look like when you get older, like, say, my age? How would you like that city to look? And I'll give you some choices here. We can pick this one. Are you kidding? Or we can pick this one. Yeah, I picked this one too. We have people out there that you're going to meet because everybody here is really smart. I've already made that conclusion by just listening to a few of you and the applause that they got because you all understood what was being said. Some of you will end up at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If you do, you have to go study with this guy. His name is Caleb Harper. He teaches there. You know what he teaches? He teaches how to make this information available to everybody by putting a little hydroponic farm in everybody's house with a reporting device that takes it back to a central lab, and they can see, oh, you grew your kale this way. Oh, you grew your kale that way. Oh, you grew your kale that way. He can do hundreds of kale experiments in one day and then see which one did it best and then say, that's the way we're going to do it from now on. And that's what he wants to do. Make this information open source, it's called. Kids are working on their PhD theses on vertical farming now. So here's my advice. Let's farm smart and help our life support systems come back to help us live better lives. We have some more information. We have a podcast called Urban Agriculture, which is what I have to go to in about 20 minutes. And I have a book on the subject. And in the back of this book, you can read the names of the 106 students that worked on this project. So thank you.